Assalamu alaikum. Today in this video we will cover the topic of peptic ulcer disease. Now, what is peptic ulcer disease? The word peptic means related to the stomach, and the word ulcer mean any sore or break in the membrane. Now, what is the definition of peptic ulcer? Peptic ulcer is defined as any breach in the muscularis mucosa of the gastrointestinal tract. We cannot use the word erosion for the peptic ulcer because the word erosion is used for more superficial condition. Actually, the ulcers begin as erosions, but not all the erosions progress to peptic ulcers. So, peptic ulcer is actually a condition involving the formation of ulcers in the stomach called gastric ulcers, or in the duodenum called the duodenal ulcers. Duodenal ulcers are more common as compared to the gastric ulcers. The lining of the gastrointestinal tract, the inner lining of the gastrointestinal tract contains mucosa. The mucosa has three layers. The innermost layer of the mucosa is called the epithelial layer. Then there is lamina propria, and the outermost layer is the muscularis mucosa. The epithelial layer is responsible for the absorption of different particles, as well as it is responsible for the secretion of the mucus layer and certain digestive enzymes. Then there is lamina propria. Lamina propria contains the lymph vessels and the blood vessels. And the outermost layer is the muscularis layer, containing smooth muscles which are responsible for stomach contractions, as a result of which breakdown of food takes place. Now, the stomach contains four major parts. This is the cardiac part of the stomach, then there is fundus, body, and the antrum of the stomach. In these different parts, the mucosa which is present has different concentration of cells in its gastric glands. This is a gastric gland. Each gastric gland contains different types of cells. For example, these green ones are the parietal cells. Parietal cells are responsible for the secretion of HCl and the intrinsic factor. These purple ones are the zymogen cells or chief cells, which are responsible for the release of pepsinogen. In addition, there are also foveolar cells, and foveolar cells are responsible for the release of mucus secretion. Now, the gastric glands which are present at the cardiac part of the stomach are more rich in foveolar cells. These foveolar cells are responsible for the release of mucus, and this mucus is rich in water and glycoproteins. In the body and fundus, the cells which are present in higher concentration are the parietal cells and the chief cells. Parietal cells which are responsible for the release of HCl and intrinsic factor, and chief cells which are responsible for the release of pepsinogen. Then there is antral part of the stomach. In the antral part of the stomach, the cells which are present in higher concentration are G cells, responsible for the release of gastrin hormone. This gastrin hormone then stimulates the release of HCl. These G cells are not only are present in higher concentration in the antrum, they are also present in the duodenum as well as in the pancreas, which is an accessory gland of the gastrointestinal tract. The stomach is constantly exposed to HCl as compared to duodenum, because duodenum is only intermittently exposed to HCl. So the mucosa of the of the stomach is more thick as compared to mucosa of the duodenum. The mucus layer which is present in the stomach is secreted by the foveolar cells, and this mucus is rich in water and glycoproteins. However, in the duodenum, there are specialized cells called there are specialized glands called Brunner's glands, and these Brunner's glands are responsible for the release of mucus, for the secretion of mucus, and this mucus is rich in bicarbonate ions. Moreover, the blood which is flowing by the blood through blood vessels to the stomach and the other parts of GIT is also carrying the bicarbonate, which is helping in neutralizing the HCl. Uh, there are also many other protective factors which are protecting them in mucus lining of the mucosa of the stomach and duodenum and other parts of GIT. One of the important protective factors is prostaglandins. Prostaglandins are secreted in the stomach as well as the duodenum, and they stimulate the release of mucus and bicarbonate ions. They also protect the stomach. They also protect the GI lining by increasing the blood flow to the gastrointestinal tract by vasodilation of the nearby blood vessels, thereby causing epithelial cell growth and inhibiting the HCl release. Now, we will discuss different factors which are responsible for causing the peptic ulcer disease. There are various factors. The most important one is H. pylori infection. H. pylori is actually Helicobacter pylori. It is a gram-negative bacteria, and it causes infection mostly in childhood. H. pylori infection is more common in developing countries and underdeveloped countries. H. pylori infection causes chronic gastritis. In chronic gastritis, the part of the stomach which is mostly involved in is the antrum of the stomach. It means that H. pylori initially affects the antrum of the stomach, but if the infection is not treated, then progressively the chronic gastritis spreads to the body of the stomach as well as to the duodenum, and it can lead to the formation of ulcers. H. pylori bacteria has specialized substances called adhesins. These adhesins enables the bacteria to attach itself to the foveolar cells of the epithelium of the stomach. Also, this bacteria releases proteases enzymes which cause damage to the epithelial cells of the mucosa. Next, we have cigarette smoking. Cigarette smoking also increases the chances of gastric ulcer. Then there is COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease causes decreases oxygenation of the blood, as a result of which there are increased chances of gastric ulcer. Then there are certain other drugs including cocaine and many others which are responsible for causing the peptic ulcer disease. Then there are specialized drugs known as non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs and corticosteroids. These drugs, when taken for prolonged period, can cause gastric ulcer. For example, the people suffering from cardiovascular disorders are taking an aspirin on daily basis, which is a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug and can lead to gastric ulcer. Similarly, use of ibuprofen or other and corticosteroids can lead to gastric ulcers. Then use of alcohol can lead to gastric ulcers. Then the stress can also causes increase in the release of HCl, and the person becomes prone to gastric ulcer, peptic ulcer disease. Then there is endocrine cell hyperplasia. Endocrine cell hyperplasia is also known as enterochromaffin-like cell hyperplasia, which stimulates the parietal cells to release HCl. And when there is increase in the concentration of HCl, there are increased chances of peptic ulcer disease. Then there are viral infections which also expose the person to peptic ulcer disease. There is an important disease known as Zollinger-Ellison syndrome. Zollinger-Ellison syndrome is a condition in which there is a tumor known as gastrinoma. This gastrinoma is responsible for increase in the release of gastrin. When there is increased release of gastrin, then there is more stimulation of the parietal cells to release HCl. So there are increased chances of peptic ulcers. These peptic ulcers can be formed in the stomach, in the duodenum, or in the jejunum. Okay. Now, what are the most important areas of the stomach where gastric ulcer can occur? If the peptic ulcer is occurring in the stomach, then the most common area where peptic ulcer occur is the lesser curvature of the antrum. This is the lesser curvature of the antrum, and this is the most prone area where peptic ulcer can occur. Also, another area is the anterior wall of the duodenum, which is the most common area where peptic ulcer can occur. Now, there are certain complications of the peptic ulcers. There are three important complications. Number one, if there are different layers of the mucosa. We have discussed earlier that there is epithelial layer, then there is lamina propria, and then there is muscularis mucosa. If the ulcer invades the muscularis mucosa and reaches the blood vessels, then it may result in hemorrhage. If the ulcer is of the lesser curvature of stomach, then the artery which is present close to it is the left gastric artery. Now, if the ulcer invades the muscularis mucosa, then it may invade the left gastric artery and can cause hemorrhage. Similarly, if the ulcer is of posterior wall of the duodenum, then the artery present here is the gastroduodenal artery, which can lead to hemorrhage. This hemorrhage can be life threatening because due to excessive blood loss, there is shock and the person can die. Then there is another important complication, which is the perforation in the wall of the stomach. Due to ulcer, if the ulcer becomes very deep, then it may cause perforation in the wall of the stomach, and there is leakage of the gastric contents into the peritoneal cavity. When we do chest X-ray, then it can be seen as air present under the diaphragm. This air can irritate the phrenic nerve and which may lead to referred pain in the left shoulder. So we have discussed two complications. One is the perforation. One is the perforation, and the second one is the hemorrhage. There is a third complication, which is the obstruction of the pyloric sphincter. When there is long-standing duodenal ulcer near the pyloric sphincter, then it may result in edema or scarring of the pyloric sphincter, due to which the gastric contents cannot be emptied into the duodenum, and it results in gastric outlet obstruction, resulting in nausea and vomiting. So these are three important complications of the gastric ulcer. One is the hemorrhage, second one is perforation, and third one is the gastric outlet obstruction. Now, what is the morphology of the peptic ulcer? Okay, this is a histological diagram which is showing a peptic ulcer. This is the normal mucosa of the stomach, and here this mucosa is breached, and it is resulting in the formation of a peptic ulcer. The outermost layer of the ulcer is the necrotic debris. This is the necrotic debris layer. Then below the necrotic debris there is inflammatory exudate. Then there is granulation tissue, and then there is fibrous tissue. These are the four layers which is present in a peptic ulcer. This is also a peptic ulcer. This is the normal mucosa. This is the normal mucosa, and this is the peptic ulcer, which is invading even the muscularis layer, and it is about to reach the blood vessel. Here we can also see various layers of the ulcer. This is the margin of the ulcer, and this is the base of the ulcer. This is the necrotic debris. Then there is this is the necrotic debris. Then there is the inflammatory exudate. Then there is granulation tissue, and at last we have fibrosis. Again, these are the 4 layers of ulcer. Outermost is necrotic debris, then there is inflammatory exudate involving the macrophages and neutrophils, then there is granulation tissue, and then there is fibrosis. This is again a a peptic ulcer. This is the normal mucosa, this is the ulcer, these are the ulcer margins, and this is the ulcer base. And this is again the same thing, 4 layers of a peptic ulcer. Outermost layer is necrotic debris, inflammatory exudate, granulation tissue, and then there is fibrous layer, which is the scar tissue. Okay, this is again a gastric ulcer, histological presentation. This is the right side and this is the left side. This is the normal mucosa, and here there is presence of ulcer. There is breachment in the mucosa, and this ulcer is invading into the lamina propria as well as into the muscularis layer, and it is going deep, and it is about to reach a blood vessel. This is a large blood vessel, and this ulcer is about to reach the blood vessel. If it reaches the blood vessel, then it can cause hemorrhage. This is again normal mucosa, and this is ulcer. There is breachment of the normal mucosa. This is ulcer, and this ulcer is reaching a blood vessel, and there is hemorrhage which can be seen by the blood. This is hemorrhage. This is the gross. This is ulcer, and this ulcer is present in the proximal part of the duodenum. This is ulcer. Normally in case of peptic ulcers, the margins are punched out. The margins are sharply punched out. There are sharply punched out margins which can be seen here. These are punched out margins. This is the peptic ulcer. This is the proximal part of the duodenum, and this is the peptic ulcer. This is the pylorus of the stomach. So these are punched out margins. Normally in case of peptic ulcers, the base of the ulcer is clear. Actually it is due to HCl production, because HCl does not allow the debris material to accumulate. Now, what are the clinical features of peptic ulcer? The important symptoms of peptic ulcer include the epigastric pain. There is bloating. The word bloating means that the belly, after eating meals, the belly becomes swollen because of the accumulation of gas. This is known as bloating. Then there is blanching. The word blanching means when there is sudden pain, then there is sudden change in posture. This is known as blanching. Then there is nausea and vomiting. Now there are certain differences between the gastric ulcer and the duodenal ulcer. In case of gastric ulcer, the pain increase on eating the meal, because when we take the meal there is increased production of HCl and the pain increases. However, in case of duodenal ulcers, when we eat the meal, then there is no increase in pain. There is decrease in pain. There is another difference. In case of gastric ulcers, there is excessive weight loss. However, in duodenal ulcers, there is gain of weight. These are the important differences. Now, how can we diagnose a peptic ulcer? It can be diagnosed by upper endoscopy. With the help of endoscope, we can diagnose the peptic ulcer. When we diagnose peptic ulcer, then biopsy is also recommended, so that we can see whether there is any metastatic changes in the whether there is any cancer changes in the peptic ulcer. Now, what is the treatment of peptic ulcer? If the peptic ulcer is due to H. pylori, then there is recommendation of antibiotics along with acid lowering drugs, for example proton pump inhibitors. Then certain substances, for example non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, tobacco and caffeine, which can exacerbate the condition, these should be stopped at once. Then when there are extreme cases, then surgery is also recommended. Thank you.